This video contains spoilers for every movie discussed. None of the movies are particularly new. Recently, I watched 3 different movies, all of them tangentially related to rock music. None of them were concert films or actual documentaries. Here's my thoughts on each of them. First, Tenacious D in The Pick of Destiny. This is a Jack Black movie starring Jack Black and the other guy who isn't Jack Black. On the scale of Jack Black movies, it's somewhere in the middle, I guess. My favorite Jack Black role is his role in the video game Brutal Legend, and this is not nearly as over the top as that. The first hour or so of the movie is not particularly great, in my opinion. It just sort of moves along towards its conclusion with a few good points sprinkled in. However, in the last 20 or 30 minutes of the movie, it finally develops a pulse and becomes a very entertaining watch. Pretty much from the point of Jack Black trying to break into the Rock and Roll History Museum, the movie's great. Especially the part of the movie that I already knew about, and the whole reason I wanted to watch it in the first place, the climactic guitar battle against the devil, which is by far the best part of the movie and the only song from the movie that I actually like a lot. Next, Heavy Metal, the 1980 animated film that's just a collection of short stories all about sex and drugs and rock and roll. The tagline says sex and crime and rock and roll, but there's definitely drugs as well. I like that this movie has many different animation styles because every different part was done by a different studio and different people writing it, but there's some that are a lot better than others. The first main story, Den, is terrible. It's just a bad isekai story of a nerdy kid sucked into another world of badassness where he's suddenly a super buff warrior who can defeat anyone. That was the worst part of the movie, and unfortunately it's the first part. The future New York City taxi cab is okay, but the best parts of the movie were definitely the World War II bomber, which was also notable for being the only one without any jokes or anything, just played completely straight the whole time. I liked the druggy aliens who abduct people from Earth. That one had lots of actually good humor in it, and the best part was the final story, Torna. It tells a close to complete story rather than just being a random excerpt from some point in some storyline somewhere, as well as just looking the best. This is also the only part of the movie where I actually enjoyed the original soundtrack to it. A lot of the soundtrack to the movie is licensed music by a bunch of rock artists, which was kind of the point of the movie. Some are used better than others. Unfortunately, my favorite band in the movie, Blue Oyster Cult, gets about a minute of, not screen time, of audio time, and it's not used particularly well at all. Some moments like The Mob Rules by Black Sabbath were great. Also included on the DVD version that I watched was a bonus feature of a story that was never finished but was storyboarded. It was basically Rite of Spring from the original Fantasia, but just way more violent, and that was pretty cool. I probably would have enjoyed that if it had actually been finished and in the film. Lastly, Labyrinth from 1986, also known as the movie with David Bowie in it. Labyrinth is the least heavy metal of any of these movies, but is also the best of these movies by far. It also heavily features Jim Henson's puppetry, in that all the characters except for Sarah and the baby and David Bowie are puppets. This definitely had the catchiest songs, because they were David Bowie pop rock songs. Especially Magic Dance, which I don't really want to like, but is still stuck in my head, and Chilly Downs, which is just a great beat. And then you also have just like the climactic scene in the room that looks like an M.C. Escher painting, with David Bowie walking around on the ceilings and stuff, and that's just a really cool scene. There's a lot of very cool looking effects in this movie that just also happens to have David Bowie as the main villain. So to rate all these movies, Tenacious D is like a 5 out of 10, but if it was just the last 30 minutes, it would be like an 8 out of 10, if it was that the whole way through. Heavy Metal, looking at it now, I also give it only like a 5 out of 10, however, it definitely deserves a higher rating than that, because basically everything I would compare it to, it predates. It is actually a pretty landmark for a lot of animation. And then Labyrinth, 8 or 9 out of 10, it's actually a very good movie. That's all for this little mini review session. If you like this, like, comment, and subscribe, whatever. I produce a lot of different kinds of content, and maybe you'll like some of it.